For the second time, many parts of Iran were rocked again by American bombs as more than 90 targets were pulverized by the US using their fighter jets and cruise missiles, including strategic facilities near the Bushehr nuclear plant. Iran responded with immediate retaliation, hitting American military installations in Qatar, Kuwait, and Bahrain. Why did the US follow up with another attack on Iran? Is this just a minor attack, or does America have bigger plans to truly weaken Iran's ruling regime? How close is the world to the outbreak of the final stage of war in the Middle East, which could be bigger and more destructive, especially since Israel has said they are ready to join the renewed conflict if America needs them? That's what we'll be discussing today, only here on Mr. Good Vibes. Yeah. At a time when many expected that the US had only carried out an isolated attack and that tensions between the United States and Iran would gradually subside, a new attack once again shook the Middle East. After the initial series of airstrikes on Wednesday, the United States launched a larger and broader operation against Iran in the early hours of Thursday. A second wave of attacks, which according to the US Central Command, was carried out to destroy Iran's capability to attack ships and to control one of the most important oil routes in the world, the Strait of Hormuz. In just 2 days, explosions were heard one after another in different parts of Iran. While on the first night, around 80 Iranian military targets were bombed by America, in the second wave it expanded even more, with almost 90 military targets being targeted. Not just one place was hit, the strength of the operation was felt from the coastal cities to strategic military locations. Among the places attacked were Bandar Abbas, Sirik, Kuhestak, Chabahar, Jais, Abu Musa Island, Konarak, and even some areas near Bushehr province, where one of Iran's most important nuclear facilities is located, although Iran announced that their nuclear facilities in the area were not hit. There were also explosions reported in Tehran, the country's capital, which caused even greater fear, as this was no longer just a simple message being sent, but possibly a new stage of a much larger conflict. According to the United States, the reason for the operation was Iran's alleged earlier attack on several commercial vessels passing through the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow but very important passage where a large percentage of the world's oil and natural gas flows. Washington says it cannot allow Iran to use this route as a weapon against the international community. But for Iran, this is a clear violation and an aggressive move that will only worsen the situation. According to initial reports, at least 14 people were killed in 2 days of back-and-forth attacks, including a member of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps or IRGC. Dozens of others were injured, while Iranian officials said that not only military targets were hit, but also some civilian infrastructure. While the United States says their operation is limited, many experts are now questioning how far this will really go. Because with every missile launched and every base hit, the space for diplomacy becomes even smaller. What's more dangerous is Israel's statement that they are just waiting for the right moment, and if the United States says their forces are needed, they are ready to strike Iran again. But as the damage from the attacks increases, the whole world now faces a bigger question. What is the real objective of the United States? Is it just to stop Iran, or is this the beginning of a bigger plan to ultimately weaken the power of Tehran? At the NATO summit in Ankara, Turkey, the message of US President Donald Trump was clear. According to him, the memorandum of understanding between America and Iran is almost finished after the renewed tension in the region. But even though he said that negotiations could still continue, he admitted that he no longer expects the next step to be easy. For Trump, what America did was a way to show that Iran cannot use fear and threats to control the actions of other countries. According to him, Tehran's military capability has already been greatly reduced, and he also warned that if attacks against American interests continue, their response could become even more severe. But despite the strong words, Trump also said that he does not want a prolonged military campaign. According to him, whatever happens will happen quickly, while he believes that Iran still wants to make a deal. But this is where the big debate among many experts comes in, because no matter how powerful the bombs, missiles, and modern weapons of the United States are, is it enough to completely bring down a country like Iran? According to some analysts, the situation is not that simple. Airstrikes can destroy bases, facilities, radar systems, and military equipment, but it's different when it comes to toppling a government that has been prepared for this kind of pressure for decades. According to Alam Saleh, a professor of politics from the University of Bradford, America's strategy is at a dead end if it relies solely on military pressure. In his view, simple bombing does not work if the goal is to change the direction of an entire country. Because historically, the fall of a government usually does not happen just because of external attacks. It happens more often when a severe economic crisis, loss of internal support, and division within the system come together. So now there are two possible directions this situation could take. First, the United States is only using its military power as pressure to force Iran to agree to a more favorable deal. But the second possibility is what many fear, that as the exchange of attacks continues, both sides might no longer be able to control the escalation. Because in the Middle East, many wars did not start because a country wanted to enter a long conflict. Sometimes it starts with an airstrike, a miscalculation, and a retaliation that can no longer be stopped. While America showed their strength from the air, Iran quickly showed that they would not let the attack go unanswered. Because just hours after the new U.S. operation, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps retaliated against several locations in the Gulf region where the United States has a presence and military assets. Suddenly, sirens sounded in several nearby countries as fear returned that the crisis might not remain only within Iran. Among those reported to have been targeted by Iran were facilities related to the U.S. military in Kuwait, Bahrain, and Qatar. According to reports, these include locations such as Arifjan and Ali Al Salem in Kuwait, as well as Jafar and Sheikh Isa in Bahrain. There are also reports of attacks against several military assets in Qatar, where the United States has long had a significant presence. Iran reportedly used a combination of ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drones, while the air defense systems of countries in the region acted to intercept some of them before they could hit their targets. In Kuwait, their defense officials said that they intercepted several missiles and drones, while one person was reported injured due to falling debris from the attack. But according to Iranian officials, this is just the beginning of their response if the operations of the United States continue. The IRGC warned that their targets could expand to other U.S. military bases throughout the region. And the situation became even more emotional because all of this is happening while Iran is mourning their former supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who died in the earlier part of the conflict. During the funeral ceremony, attended by a large number of Iranian supporters, it was not only a day of mourning but also became a symbol of anger and a call for revenge. One of the highest-ranking military officials in Iran, Major General Abdul Rahim Abdullahi, commander of the Qatam Al-Anbiya Central Headquarters, issued a strong warning after the funeral service. According to him, the United States and Israel should not think that the sadness they see from the Iranian people is a sign of weakness. Instead, he said that this anger will continue until those responsible are held accountable. This is where the situation became even more dangerous because, for America, what they are doing is a military response to protect their interests. But for Iran, this is no longer just a matter of damaged bases or equipment. For them, this has become a personal fight, a fight connected to honor, sovereignty, and revenge. And when a conflict is no longer just about strategy but also about the emotions of an entire nation, that's when it usually becomes much harder to prevent a war. But in the midst of all the missiles, airstrikes, and threats, there is one place that could dictate how far this crisis will go: the Strait of Hormuz. This is the narrow sea passage between Iran and the Arabian Peninsula. But even though it looks small on the map, it is one of the most important trade routes in the world. Because a large portion of the supply of oil and liquefied natural gas used by different countries passes through here. This means that any conflict in this area is not just a problem for Iran or America. This can be felt in the prices of gasoline, food, and goods in different parts of the world. For Iran, the Strait of Hormuz is their strongest trump card, because even though America has strong military capability, Iran controls a place that is very important to global trade. If the passage of ships here is disrupted, it will quickly cause fear in the international market. This is the reason why Tehran uses this as leverage in negotiations. For them, as long as they have the ability to affect the flow of oil around the world, they have a counter against sanctions and military pressure. But Iran's greatest weapon could also be its greatest weakness. Because if the Strait of Hormuz is completely paralyzed, not only will other countries be affected, but Iran's own economy will also be hit. Tehran also relies on oil sales to support its economy. And when the movement of ships slows down, the danger at sea increases and buyers avoid them, their own income also drops. According to some economic analysts, because of the US naval blockade, Iran has been forced to sell its oil at a lower price, while its exports are struggling due to restrictions and fear among international shipping companies. It's also not simple for other countries to immediately find an alternative route. Saudi Arabia and the UAE have other pipelines to export their oil, but these cannot fully replace the capacity of the Strait of Hormuz. Qatar, on the other hand, which is one of the largest exporters of natural gas, also depends on the safe passage through this route. So in a way, Iran holds a very powerful bargaining chip. But on the other hand, the more they use this as a weapon, the more pressure also builds up within their own country. This is the complicated reality of the Strait of Hormuz. It's like a sword that Iran holds against its enemies, but if they grip it too tightly, they could also get hurt by their own weapon. Now, after a series of attacks and retaliations from both sides, one question is inevitably being asked by the whole world. Is this the beginning of a wider war in the Middle East? Especially this time, many NATO leaders have expressed support for the position of the United States and agreed that stronger measures are needed to prevent it, the growing threat from Iran in the region. For Trump, this proves that it is not only America that sees the danger in the situation when it comes to Iran. According to him, the strike they carried out was not just to start a long war, but to send a clear message to Iran that any attack against international security will have consequences. But even with support from allies, a big challenge remains. How will the US stop Iran without pushing the entire region into a wider conflict? On the other hand, many experts believe that the possibility of diplomacy still remains. Neither America nor Iran has completely declared the agreement dead. The door is still open for negotiations. But the problem is, while the two countries are talking about peace, their militaries continue to exchange missiles and threats. And this is the reason why many experts are worried. Because when both countries want to show that they won't back down, the possibility of miscalculation increases. A wrong target, heavier casualties, or an attack with unexpected results could trigger a wider war. For the United States, their message is clear. They will not allow Iran to use the Strait of Hormuz and its military power to intimidate the international community. But for Iran, they see things differently. For them, what they are doing is a defense against a stronger country that has been using sanctions and military pressure against them for decades. This is the reason why the situation is difficult, because America is looking for a guarantee that Iran will no longer be a threat in the region, while Iran is looking for ways to maintain its power and influence. But if the question is whether America can bring down Iran using only bombs, many experts believe it's not that easy. Yes, modern weapons can destroy military facilities, nuclear sites, communication systems, and bases. But the fall of a government is a different matter. Iran is not just an army. It is a country with its own political system, millions of people, vast territory, and groups that have long prepared for the possibility of a major conflict. So, for experts, the biggest battle now is not just happening in the air with fighter jets and missiles. It is also happening in the economy, diplomacy, and in who gives in first under intense pressure. But while the world waits to see if the two countries will return to the negotiation table, one thing is clear. The effects of this conflict will not only be felt in Washington or Tehran. If the flow of oil is affected, energy prices will rise again. If shipping costs go up, the prices of products may increase even more. And if the crisis drags on, even countries thousands of kilometers away, including the Philippines, may feel the effects. Right now, both America and Iran are in a dangerous position. Each side wants to show strength. And add to that Israel, which is just waiting for its opportunity. But in history, the most dangerous moment in any conflict is when both sides believe that they cannot back down. Because sometimes the hardest thing to stop is not the first attack, but the endless cycle of revenge that follows. So now the whole world is asking the same question. Will these two longtime rivals finally find a way back to peace? Or will what is happening now become the beginning of a new war that will once again change the history of the Middle East? What about you? What's your opinion on this never-ending war? Would you prefer that America and Israel just continue the war against Iran so that the regime ruling there can finally be defeated? Or would you rather that the US just leave Iran alone to keep to themselves in their own country? Don't hesitate to share your comments below. If you like this video, please share it with others and don't forget to subscribe. Also, watch the videos on the right so you can waste even more time.